have to start today's show with a quote. And this quote I was given by my guest today. So I thought, you know what? What a beautiful way to start this conversation that I'll have with my guest today. The quote says, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And the quote itself is by Anais Nin. Who, I don't know about you, but I get goosebumps. And I also get this feeling that I too am no longer, that bud that wants to remain in the bud. I want to blossom. So we're going to hear more about how do you get to take the steps to blossom. My guest today is Miss LaToya Guion. Welcome to the show, Miss LaToya.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm very humbled and privileged.
What a quote. How did you come up with that quote? What meaning has it had in your life before I even introduced you?
Wow. I came across that quote, I will say probably over a decade ago. And when I read it, just like you said, it gave you goosebumps. It was just like, wow. I was in a very interesting place. So, I would say, late 20s, transitioning in my mind, things like that. I came across that. It was a little scary time. I was diving into business and stuff like that. And that quote, kind of gave me the courage to say, hey, I don't want to be in this bud. That's scarier than just taking the leap. So it still gives me goosebumps. When you read it, it's just like, it warms my soul. So it's so important to me. And even when I get challenged now as a 41-year-old woman, that quote gives me, just a little more strength and courage to keep going. So it's been a pretty important part of my life.
It's interesting because as I read it, right, I'm also reminded, you and I had a brief discussion before we started the show. I'm a Christian woman, you're a Christian woman as well. But it's almost like it's God saying, listen, you're better off taking the flight and taking the risk because I'll be the wind beneath your wings. So
yes.
Trust me, and
yes.
fly away, right?
Yes. Yes. And when you think about it, the flower doesn't stay closed. Eventually it has to blossom. Because if it didn't, we wouldn't get those beautiful flowers. So that's how it spoke to me. I would dive into that quote and say, hey, I need the world to see what God has produced. And I'm not finished. I'm still blossoming. So I can't stay in that little bud because then they won't see what God has purposed in that flower.
You're right. I know all of you are probably wondering, okay, why are they just talking about this quote? There's more that we're going to talk about. And let me just, tell you a little bit about, Miss LaToya Guion. She's a wife, she's a mom, she's an author and global entrepreneur in the financial literacy space. I know I need her. I need some, money. Health, wealth, and organic beauty. Those are her passions. She's born to Eugene and Doretha Peterson, October 3rd, 1978. I know, don't roll your eyes and say, women don't say their age. Here's one. As a small child, she said she often daydreamed while prancing around carrying her dad's briefcase, imagining herself as the owner and CEO of her company. Thank God for fulfilling that dream today. So stay tuned. Here's the thing. Let's go back. I work a lot with parents that are parents of teenagers. So I think, let's go back to the time when you were a teenager, those years. Talk to us a little bit about those and experience for you.
Well, we talked about being a Christian. I was literally, I say, born on the pew in church. So transitioning into the teen years was a little challenging for me. Being the type of church that I was in was very, very strict. and things like that. So I would say it was a tad bit, difficult going into that 13, year old, 14. I had a very happy life at home. Dad worked hard, mom, was home with me. She did not work. But it was a little challenging going from, going into, that young adult, young teen, being, again, the church was very, very, very strict. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't wear this, you couldn't wear that. So a teenage girl who is very vibrant, very lively, kind of contained in a bud by someone else, was very, very interesting. I would call myself, I would say I was kind of a rebel. I always went against the grain with stuff, in church, because it just didn't make any sense. I didn't see God that way. I didn't see God as just this person that just outwardly you have to look a certain way to have his heart, because that's not who he is. So that was, that was a challenge. And then you fast forward on to now, they teach you how to be and how to look, but not the challenges of being a teenager, what you feel, how your body changes. It didn't really get all of those talks. So now you go into, now I meet this guy, he's experienced, and this was around 15, 16, and boom, I'm facing, becoming a mom in church. in this strict, church. So I would say starting at 16, it got super challenging because now I'm pregnant. So
wow.
that was very interesting.
Yeah. So then are you saying to those parents that are probably a little bit strict, and I mean, not a little bit, because that was a whole lot of strict.
Oh, yes.
That it is actually probably not a good thing to make it that strict, because then here comes you who was in that strict environment and feeling confined and not being allowed to blossom. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just definitely, changed my mind, even during that time. And as I got older into the teen years, because 16, I mean, I'm in church, I'm pregnant, I have this child. I started thinking differently. I'm like, I appreciate some of the things that I was taught, about knowing God, definitely appreciate that. But just all of the ritualistic things, that don't matter, that don't prepare you for actual life, life happening to you. So it changed my perspective, because I had to become a mom very, very early, but it made me change and think about the way I want to parent as well. So it was challenging, but it taught me a lot too, especially thinking about it now at 41.
Yeah. So then, now you become a mom at 16. How is the relationship between you and your parents? Were your parents pastors of the church or something?
They were ministers. So yeah, they weren't pastors, but they were ministers. So you could technically say I was two preachers kid. Yes, they were ministers. You're talking about, a girl that, again, born on the pew. I sang in the choir with the adult choir at 3, literally. So that's how deep I was, in church. And, I went through a lot. I went through a lot of ridicule. You would be surprised, it goes back to, we're teaching how to look godly, but are we practicing his love and his compassion and his forgiveness? And I will say, for the most part, I did not receive that in church, but thankfully my parents were extremely supportive. I mean, I can remember the day my mom challenged me and she's like, hey, you know, she was that mom that paid attention to the cycle and all that. She's like, you're late. And I tried to play her, and she's like, And I remember when I couldn't hide it, it was just a ball of tears, both of us.
Wow.
A ball of tears. And she literally looked at me after we both stopped crying and said, okay, let's make a doctor's appointment. It was just like that.
Yeah.
It was like, we're having a baby. My dad looked and he's like, yeah, we're having a baby. And it was that simple. So I thank God I had that support. I really did. So yeah, very supportive. I mean, I wasn't bashed for it, you know. It happened. And, you know, it made her look different at the things she did as far as church. And you got to have those conversations about life with your children and not just, hey, don't do it, God's going to get you.
Right. And, you know, I think it's also a challenge for parents that are in that predicament, because now you're not only answering to God himself, but then to the church. But then here's the thing, he's the one that ordains every moment in every chapter in our lives. So what if, you know, that's, you know, what's supposed to happen at that moment?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's definitely, even then, as a young woman, I knew, yeah, of course, I didn't like the way it happened, but it's a purpose. It's a part of my story. It's a part of my blooming process. And, you know, apparently my son, James, that's his name, he's supposed to be here, and he was supposed to be here at that time, and he was supposed to come that way. Why? We don't know, but we'll know when everything is finished.
Right. And by the way, James, happy birthday, because we are doing this a day before your birthday. So happy birthday. All right. So here's the thing. Talk to that teenage girl that's now a parent at 16. What were some of the lessons that you learned as a teen mom?
As a teen mom, well, you got to grow up fast.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you had a mom like mine, like she was not playing the radio. And I would say I was already, you know, a little wiser for my age anyway. So it wasn't, you know, my mom is taking care of the child. Yeah, I went to school. I had to transition schools. We actually decided, you know, once we knew I was pregnant, that I would not stay, you know, in my current high school at that time, which was Oak Ridge High School here in Orlando. That I would transition to an alternative school. And that's something we discussed and I talked with counselors about. And I transitioned. So I actually went to a school where it was convenient for, you know, what I was going through, because I was sleeping in class. I mean, during the whole pregnancy process, you know, grades were, you know, not doing well because I'm pregnant, I'm sick. So we made that transition. And it was a slap in the face. It's like, hey, I have to leave all of my friends, but I had to grow up. And you know what? It didn't kill me. It did not kill me. It was an amazing experience. I met some amazing people at that time. But if you are in that situation, you know, just trust that God will put people in place to take you through that time. My mother didn't understand everything about me being pregnant and what I was dealing with in my mind and things like that. You know, I had her support as much as she could, you know, give to what she understood about the whole process. But there was a lot of stuff going on inside of me. If you think about it, you're a teen, your body is changing, 16, 17 years old, you already have hormonal changes. Then you put on top of that a baby, that's another set of, you know, hormonal changes. So, you know, if you are a teen in that situation, you know, maybe you consider going somewhere else and not, you know, going through that process in your original, you know, where you're going to school at. You don't have to drop out of school. there are places where you can go, like I did, that you can still flourish and go to school and keep your grades. And even after you have the baby, you can return to that school. So that's the options, you know, that I took, that I thought would be best for myself and my child. But hey, you won't die. I'm here. It's tons of support out there, and I'm thankful. That school was actually Beta Alternative School, and it's still up and running right now, today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, you know, just in addition to that, thank you for that. In addition to that, as a mental health professional myself, I also want to add it on there that if you're a parent listening to this, you know, or the teenager yourself listening to this, please add to, you know, what Ms. LaToya just said, mental health counseling, to just go and sit down with the therapist and talk about the changes that are going on, because prepartum and postpartum depression are real. And especially for a body like yours, for a young person that is not fully developed mentally, it is going to really challenge you mentally. The emotions, the feelings, the body changes and everything. So then it becomes difficult for you to get along with others. But then for parents, it's also very, very challenging for you to deal with that young person that is pregnant. I encourage you, please also consider and talk to a mental health professional, talk about the emotion and how you can best cope with them.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And that's the thing, you know, my parents were a little bit older. My mom had me at 38. So, you know, she was 38 years old when she had me. So, you know, she comes from a different era, you know, and they don't talk to therapists and things like that. So it was a learning lesson for all of us. It was a teaching experience because she learned a lot. You know, I went through a lot during that small phase of being pregnant and giving birth. And, you know, it was a very, very hard, difficult time, you know, when I got to that point of having that child and things like that. But thank God there were people in place at this school that helped me get through those, you know, difficult times. So yes, absolutely. You know, talk to somebody, most definitely.
So if we love James, you know, he's, you know, an anointed, you know, kid that came at the ordained time. But if you were to talk to that teen self prior to you getting, you know, pregnant, what would you tell yourself?
Ooh. Oh boy, what would I tell myself? I would say it's okay to think outside of the box. You don't have to be conformed to what somebody is saying to you, especially if you know it's you know, something off about it. I always felt, you know, I always had this intuition, and we all have it. Okay, especially women. There's something that tells us when things are not right. You know, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I mean, I felt that when I met this boy. I knew it. I knew it. I was warned by others. Listen to what your body is telling you. Pay attention. We have it. It talks to us. It's not loud. It's sometimes a feeling that you have. Pay attention to that. Talk to someone. If your parent is not one that you can speak to. I wasn't educated on sex and what not to do. You know, of course, years, 2019, there's lots of education on it. But speak to someone. Listen to that intuition that you have. I would definitely dive more into, you know, being, you know, more productive. And, you know, I was in, you know, I did well in school, you know, when I wasn't thinking about a boy. You know, I did well, but being more focused on what you want to be, really take thought into that. What is your purpose? Why are you here? Like, that's a big one for me. Like, why are you here? What is your purpose? What are you supposed to do? Don't let people tell you you got to take this path. You know, there's a path. Oh, go to school, go to college, blah, 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 do this, do that. There's like this strict path, but that might not be your path. And you really have to spend time with yourself, you know, and be okay with, you know, being weird. Spend time with yourself and figure out what is it that you love. You know it at a young age. You know it. It presents itself very, very young. I knew that I wanted to run my own empire. I knew that from a young kid. I can vividly see it now. So really dive deep into what you want to do, you know, what your purpose is, what makes you happy, what do you love to do, and talk to God about it. Most definitely talk to God about it. And that's just going to make the teen years a little bit easier because you're going to have another focus. You know, of course, you're going to go through all the boy stuff. You may not, you know, all of that stuff, but really dive into why you are here and what your purpose is. What do you love to do? And go from that. Learn about money. I would definitely tell them that now. We don't learn about money in school. Learn about money. Learn about budgeting. Learn more than just how to write a check or balancing a checkbook. Learn about money. Learn about having more than one stream of income. Again, think outside of the box. That's what I would say. Don't let somebody put you in a box. I don't care if it's the school, your mom. Don't let them put you in that box. Think outside and find out what you love and why you're here and what you're supposed to do.
So that tells me that that's your empire, because then the minute you said talk about money, your voice changed, your whole body changed. You were like in your realm now. We don't get back. We don't get back.
Yes.
Right. From what you said about, you know, who you were as a young teenager, you are a strong-minded, strong-willed person even today, just talking to you. And I think that's probably what you were as well at that time. Independent, strong-minded, I'll do what I want to do. Okay, fine, you all want me to do that, but you know what? If I don't want to do it and it doesn't, you know, sink in with me, you can forget it. I'm not doing it. Is the kind of teenager probably that you were that just like, listen, okay, I'm fine when it's with me, but if it doesn't, then forget it, right? So do you think, and I'm just wondering, do you think part of you getting pregnant was also a part of I'll do what I want to do, and if it happens, fine?
Yes, absolutely. I will say that it was not my plan by any means to be pregnant. I was ignorant. Again, I was taught more to, hey, God's gonna get you. You don't have sex. Basically, that was my speech. You know, I didn't get the other things. You know, I didn't get to the maybe. You know, maybe we might need to get you some birth control because you really like this guy.
Yes.
You know, I didn't get that talk. You know, it was just, this is what God wants. But I was like, well, I know what God is. I know who he is. I know he's a forgiver. I was wise. So I'm like, he's going to forgive me. And so you're absolutely right. I was very strong-willed. Yeah. And if it did not make sense, I'm not falling for it.
So are you a proponent of, you know, kids being on birth control now rather than, you know, I mean, them believing and being told that sex is a no until you get married, but for them, more open and, you know, take the kid in protection?
Yes, absolutely. I believe in abstinence all the way. Don't do it. But at the end of the day, you don't know what your teenager is going to do. Because I can guarantee my mother would have never thought that would happen. But when you think you're in love, things happen. And that was it. I thought I loved this person, and, so things happen. So of course, I believe in, not having sex before marriage. Not everybody may agree with that. That is my belief. That is, what I've taught my children. Have they all done that? Probably not, but I taught that, but I also had very, candid, real conversations with them very young, about sex and protecting themselves and what you should do. I had a ton of experience during that time, just in my own life that I could share of why you shouldn't do it, proof, a 24-year-old boy, because that changes your life. But yeah, if you are not one that, you don't believe in that and you think, you can have sex, they need to be prepared, and they need to be prepared early. That talk needs to happen early. They should be comfortable enough to come to the parent and say, hey, I'm thinking about it. But you have to have that open communication. And I did not have that, because it probably would have went differently had I. So yes, talk to your children. And I do believe if you know that might be, something that may happen, yeah, the birth control, sex talk needs to happen, definitely. And it needs to happen early.
Yeah. So what age? Early.
I started talking to my kids like 7, just talking about sex. Earlier than that, I talked about predators and, things of that, I no one is to touch you. Of course, I had that talk. I don't care if it's your grandma or I don't care if it's a family member. I had those talks extremely young, but as they got older and they're liking boys, liking girls, things like that, I had the birds and bees per se, talk and things like that. And I always made it open and where you can talk to me. We sat down as a family and had conversations, because I was almost afraid to talk about stuff like that. And my childhood, it's, I was afraid to speak about that. A lot of times sometimes I got in a lot of trouble because there was no, communication as far as if we're having a dispute, I was told to be quiet. There was no discussion, and that was that error, especially in our community. You don't talk back. It was considered talking back because I wanted to give my opinion. So I got in a lot of trouble, a lot, because I didn't take that. It was like, no, I have something to say and I need to say it. But that didn't help my situation either. So, it made it a little harder, especially being pregnant and then after the baby is born, I'm going through depression and things like that. Then it's like, oh, I should have let this girl talk, and it shouldn't have been, a battle. So that's something that I purposed to let my children speak, There are times where I'm like, okay, be quiet, but I really wanted to not be that mom to be like, no, it's what I said, and you don't have anything to say, and there's no discussion. They need to talk. Communication is everything. It's a relationship.
I hope this part here will be something that you replay over and over again, because it'll be a reminder to yourself to say, you know what, I cannot tell my teen to be quiet, because the minute you say be quiet, as you are saying, which, I commend you for being open and talking about it. The minute you say be quiet, they have missed an important part of learning from you and being able to express what's on their heart for that minute. So I agree with you. I don't think there should be any moment or minute that they're told to be quiet, because either way, whether it's bad and, as an adult, I don't want to hear it. I need to hear it so that I can help them think about it in a different way, express it in a different way, understand what it is that they're saying, so that again, we can connect more, communicate even more, because now they are open. But mostly that relationship is what's
Yes. Yes, because what happened, what that does is now you're opening up a can of worms. Now they're going to talk to somebody else, and that might not be the proper person. Or, it might be the wrong person. And, and in my case, it turned out to be a boy that was 3 years older than me, and I talked to other people too, but that's what you're doing. You're shutting that down for them to now go somewhere else and possibly get the information you don't want them to get.
Yeah. Real quick, right, Miss LaToya, one of the things that, because I've been doing mental health for many years now, and I have worked with teenagers that are mothers at, 15, 16, 14, some of them were 14, right?
Yes.
What your experience was like. But I was amazed at, talking to these teenagers, this was great love, and then they get pregnant, and all of a sudden that great love is no more. Those young men also, I'm not prepared well to be there. So they're not pregnant. And now all, pardon my French, all hell breaks loose, because they're no longer there, and they're not that person that you dreamt of and talked about, and everything was fine. How was your experience with your child's father?
Exactly how you said, literally. He was, I was 16. He's 3 years older than me. So it actually came a point where, my dad thought about putting him in jail, but that didn't happen. But he was a boy. I mean, he's not developed either. I mean, there was cheating, of course, while I was pregnant. I went through a lot of emotional things having this man's child, and lots of cheating. Then he was in a world that was not the world I wanted to have my child in. And because of that, when the child was born, I didn't allow him to take my child, because he was in a not good environment, around people with weapons. And so with that, he was the type of, well, if I can't have my way, I'm not going to be involved at all. So, I went through him denying the child at like 5 months old, because he couldn't have his way. And then eventually, I would say probably around 1 or 2, he just disappeared altogether, and yeah. So I went through not having him there. So now I'm doing this by myself, basically. Of course my parents are there, but I'm his mama. So daddy is not there. And I will say that his family, wasn't that involved either. So, he has one set, he knows both, sides of the family, but one is more prevalent in his life than the other. But yeah, I went through that, and I didn't die,
Yeah. But I wanted to make sure that the young people understand, because then what I always tell them is, when you become pregnant, I don't care if you're married and everything is hunky-dory, you are the mother, and you're going to be the primary caregiver for this child. So
absolutely.
Fathers can be there, even grown-up fathers cannot be there as much as you are going to be there. So sometimes that battle, you might not win it, to say he's not here, he doesn't change the diapers, he doesn't do this. It's like, no. I think for young people to think about that, because you're going to be alone, or, with him there and you're still alone, or without him there and you're still alone, you're the primary caregiver.
Absolutely, yes. It's mom, and it's funny you say that. Even being married, I've been married 20 years. When the baby gets sick, they call mama. You know, you are the primary person, and you have to think about it too. You've carried that child, so a lot of times that's who they want,
Yes.
is mom.
Yes.
You've carried this person inside of you. There's a different bond there. So that is something to think about. You naturally you get ready. Once you conceive and you know a baby's coming, naturally, most of the time as a mom, you go into mom mode. It is not the same for a male. It's not the same. He does not have that connection, does not have that bond. And a lot of times it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, so they might take flight and you might not see them. Or in the case of where you are married and the husband is there, sometimes he's the primary caregiver. So, you know, he's the one bringing the money in the house. So it is you. So that is something to think about when you're having sex, and know that it could very well just be you by yourself. I don't care what he's telling you, because he told me all kinds of stuff. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. Yeah.
Okay, now the best part of your life, because what I want parents and teenagers out there to know is that life does turn around. That moment where you become a butterfly and, you know, get to blossom and fly does come. That moment will come. It doesn't mean that it's the end of the world when, you know, the child comes and your child becomes pregnant at a younger age. There's still a whole lot of life.
Oh, yes.
Believe. So tell us a little bit about when you met the love of your life, because you just mentioned you're married for 20 years.
Well, I actually met him before I got pregnant in church. We were in the same church. He was my sweetheart for forever, 9 years old. And then the other guy came and broke it off for a little bit. But literally, I will say my son was about 2 years old. And, you know, I had broken away from his, you know, definitely severed, you know, everything with his father. Yeah. And, you know, he kind of made his own self disappear. And he came, that young child sweetheart came back into my life. He was in the military at that time. And he came back into my life. And just like a boom, it was just like, I actually saw him in a vision before. It was the strangest thing. I saw him in a vision. He was in town the next couple of weeks. And, you know, I kind of broke his heart. As teenagers, of course, he watched me be pregnant, you know, but I went for it. I was 19 years old. And you know, we talked and I told him I want to try it again, and we were married the next year. Oh, so he was my sweetheart. He was like my first boyfriend at like 9. Oh, wow. If that's even a thing at 9 years old. So, and he raised my oldest. He raised my son.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then now we get into this, you know, empire that you're building.
Yes.
What kind of business? I mean, I know it has to do with financial, so let's talk a little bit about that as well.
Okay, yes, well, I was introduced to the financial industry. I've always been into health and fitness and making people aware of healthy habits. I'm not going to by any means call myself a guru, but just, you know, educating people in health and, you know, eating, you know, making them aware of labels, things like that. But I also wanted something else, because as you get older, I was very young when I got married, again, 19, almost 20. And you see a lot of things happen in life, transitions. I mean, money wasn't an issue in my house as a young teenager. However, I wasn't taught the ins and outs of it either. You know, I wasn't educated. I wasn't educated on investing. I wasn't, you know, I didn't have deep conversations about credit and how important it was, you know, and things like that. It was just like, we had it, pay all your bills on time, don't be late. That was kind of the gist of my money, conversation as a child and as a teenager. So, here in the last couple of years, I've really dove into financial education and just financial literacy, knowing about money, knowing your credit score, knowing your rights, with your credit score. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, about 40-50% of people can't even pass a financial literacy test. So I've made it my mission, just through my own struggles, back in 2008 when the market crashed. My husband and I were a part of that. We were hit hard by that. We were getting into some investing and things like that. And because we weren't educated enough in that, it took us like literally a decade to pull ourselves out of that. 2018, everything was looking nice for us. The credit score is looking really nice. I was doing it on my own and it was tough. And then my daughter gets hurt, my youngest. She's playing ball and she tears her meniscus and ACL. And now my credit score takes a dive because this is her dream. She wants to play ball professionally. She's told me that since she was 4. So remember I said, what you want to do young. What you want to do at a young age. She told me this at 4 years old and has never changed. So she was devastated. Doctor bills are piling up. Her therapy was $600 a month. And then I was introduced to a company, that I work for now. It totally changed my life. I mean, the credit score is back where I want it now with them. And I love it because it teaches you the ins and outs of money. It's not just, let's fix your credit. It teaches you how to rebuild, how to fix it, what to do, what not to do, budgeting, planning your net worth, just a ton of different things. And I'm really passionate about it because so many people are ignorant, to money. And I tell people all the time, especially here as of late, like, hey, we're about to experience that again. The economy is going to take a plunge. It's coming. And it's going to be a lot worse than it was in 2008. And if I knew then what I know now, okay, my life would have looked a lot different and it wouldn't have taken us a decade to recover. But now I'm telling people you got to leverage yourself, and leveraging yourself is knowing your numbers financially across the board. So, hey, don't get in a bunch of debt, pay off debt. You need to stack that savings account. And there are ways to do that. And I'm able to show people that and extremely passionate about it. So I'm in total fitness. That's what I call it. The body as well as the bank account.
And the bank account and everything. Wow. We could talk about that forever. How can people get in touch with you again?
Well, they can reach me. I'm all over social media, but they can actually reach me at www.oliviag.org. All right. So that's OLIVIAG as in George.org. That's my website. They can go there. They can, send me a message. They can dial 407-792-3470. That is strictly a business line there. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere.
So what I have is I will have all those links for all of you right below this video, wherever you see it, whether it's in podcast or on our YouTube video for Bridging the Gap. So, Miss Olivia, I really have enjoyed, talking to you. And
yes, likewise.
Before we end, do you have one more word of encouragement that you can give the parents and teenagers and professionals out there that will watch this viral video of yours that we just did? To the parents, listen, please listen. You have to listen.
listening is so important. You also have to pay attention. The world is so busy now that we don't pay attention. You know, make your kid put their phone down. Like, you sit down and have dinner a couple times a week. Like, those are super important moments that sometimes what you know, something crazy that happens, you could have caught just by being present, paying attention, and listening and letting them talk. Put the phones down, take a breath, slow down, and pay attention. I mean, because these kids now, I mean, my teen years were a little challenging, but now it's on another level. So slow down, pay attention, make them put the phone down. I don't care if they get mad, whatever. They're not your friend. They're your kid. As far as teens, same thing. You listen as well. You listen as well. Find out what you love. You know, find out what really ignites you inside, what lights your eyes, and run with it. Go with it, grab it, and run.
Yeah. Wow. You know what? I'm gonna talk to, you know, Miss Olivia after this, because one of the things that I know for sure, when her kids watch this year, they're gonna be like, Mom, really? They're your kids? Just make them put the phone down, really, Mom? And that's when the fight comes. But don't worry about it. One of the things that I did, and I'll let you know, Miss Olivia, as well, I wanted for more parents to build a stronger relationships with their teenagers, because what happens is, by the time that they get to be around 11, sometimes even 10 years old, they start to break away because they're starting independently, and that relationships becomes even more challenging for both the teenagers and the parents. So I created a program that is called 6 Ways to Easily Connect with Your Teenager. And what I had in mind was to continue to share with parents the things that you might want to consider doing that will bring your teenager back together. And I tell you, you know, I was, you know, laughing with Miss Olivia a little bit, but for a teenager, when you say, well, you're my child, you're going to put the phone down, it's a fight, because now you want me to put your phone down because I'm your child. No, I don't want to put the phone down. I don't want to talk to you. And then guess what they do? They put the phone down because it's Mom, but then they sit there and there's no conversation. They go there, and then you say something and they're not saying anything, or it's like, okay, yeah. That's not a conversation. So now Mom is really frustrated. So we start this cycle now, whereas, you know, there's certain ways that you can approach that conversation, and it will be so exciting because the teenagers will start, you know, themselves, they'll take a basket and say, okay, I put mine down, Mom, can you put yours in there? And you're like,
yes.
Yeah. So the link is also, you know, in the description for that program, you know, 6 Ways to Easily Connect with Your Teenagers, for all of you that will be watching this. And I think I would do justice to this interview if I again end it with that quote that, you know, Miss Olivia shared with us at the beginning. And the quote is, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." Amazing. Until then, everyone, this is Dr. STEM.
Yes.
I always say be encouraged, and thank you so much, Miss Olivia.
Bye.
Bye.